is Epic Mickey Rebrushed, a remake of Epic Mickey, a 3D platform game that was released exclusively for the Wii back in 2010. Developed by Purple Lamp, Epic Mickey Rebrushed aims to bring the original game to a new audience by remaking the game to be suited for modern platforms. I have never personally played the original, so this will not be a comparison between the original and the remake. Warren Spector, the creative director of the original, returned for the remake. In a deep dive video on YouTube, Warren talked about just like how classic Disney movies are timeless, he wants the Epic Mickey to be the same. Did Warren and the team over at Purple Lamp achieve that? Well, that's what I'm trying to find out as I review Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed for Steam. The game opens up with Mickey Mouse long before he is the famous mascot, realizing his mirror in his bedroom is a portal to Jen's workshop. You know, the wizard guy from Kingdom Hearts? The mirror leads him to Jen's workshop just as he's painting a world for long forgotten Disney characters. As the wizard leaves, satisfied with his progress for the day, Mickey lets his curiosity get the better of him and decides to experiment with the brush, not knowing the full extent of its capabilities. Ends up making a mess. As the wizard hears the commotion coming from his workshop, Mickey panics and leaves before he could be found. In his haste, he spills the thinner bottle onto the world, creating a monster known as a blot, and tarnishing Jen's creation, turning it into what will become the Wasteland. Several decades goes by, and now Mickey has become the infamous mascot that we all know and love. And one night he gets dragged into the wasteland by the monster he created. He finds himself stuck in Forgotten Land, equipped only with Jen's magic paintbrush and his new companion Gremlin Gus. We do also get introduced to Oswald the Rabbit. And who is Oswald the Rabbit, you may ask? To put it simply, he was Disney's original mascot before Mickey came into the picture. In the game, he used to rule the wasteland until the Blot took over and pretty much resents Mickey for replacing him as Disney's poster boy. I found the story to be simple yet thought-provoking. As we explore the wasteland and its surrounding areas, it's like watching a documentary, seeing all of these NPCs that featured in old Disney movies but has been forgotten due to time. But also we get to see how Mickey has to come to terms with the consequences of his actions, as he is directly responsible for the destruction as well as how he has taken the fame for granted. Reuniting with characters that he worked a long time ago, but unlike him they were thrown out to the bin, never to be seen again. We do get to be in the driver's seat making those decisions for the mouse throughout the story, but more on that later. What shocked me the most is that outside of Jen's narration, the game does not feature a fully voiced acting. Instead, the characters only use Foley sounds to convey their expressions. You do have, of course, subtitles to understand the plot, but I expected more from a game that has one of the most iconic mascots in history. As mentioned earlier, Mickey has access to Jen's paintbrush, which has two functionalities, painting or tinning. The mechanics are pretty much self-explanatory. The paint adds color and fills in elements of the world around him, while the tinner does the opposite. This opens the door to find hidden secrets around the wasteland, such as concept art, unlockables, e-tickets, the game's currency, and more. Technically, you have a limited amount of each painting and tinning, but they get automatically refilled after some time, meaning it feels like you have unlimited painting even though it's not. The developers talked about how they did a lot of prototypes to see what they could change. In the end, they felt like the original gameplay was good enough as it is, but added tweaks to improve the core gameplay. These were sprinting, dash and ground pound. As I've said before, having not played the original, I can't compare the differences, but I can imagine how the gameplay experience would have been different. Sprinting is a staple in every game, and seeing it in here makes me realize how we take small things for granted. Some of the areas in Epic Mickey are vast, so sprinting is necessary, otherwise it would be such a pain to get through. Dashing is used to dodge as well as fly past enemies when you don't feel like attacking. Again, a small addition, but another quality of life feature. And then we have the ground pound, and that's the one I use the least because Mickey can physically attack, but it will just push back the enemies. The game very much encourages you to use the brush at all times, as it's a necessity. In the beginning, the controls seemed self-explanatory, as I strongly believed the game was all about using the brush to restore as much of the wasteland as possible, while finding a way to return to his own world. As it turns out, how you use the brush will also affect the ending. That's right. The game has a moral system just like Red Dead Redemption and Baldur's Gate 3, which took me by surprise, genuinely. I won't get into the specifics as to how to achieve a specific ending, but this is how you define how Mickey gets to be in the story. You can either allow Mickey to be mischievous and ruin the lives of the Wastelanders even more, or let him take responsibility and try to restore the world. During certain moments during the main story and side quest, depending on how you use the brush, will either lean towards the bad, the good, or a neutral ending. Later into the game, Mickey unlocks power-ups. They're primarily used to solve certain puzzle sections or needed for certain boss fights. In my honest opinion, they don't bring anything to the table. Because everything is based around the paintbrush, everything else feels like an afterthought. I believe if Purple Lamp had created specific enemies with specific weaknesses to each of the power-ups, rather than what we got, the combat would feel a lot more rewarding and added a lot more variety. This is why I'm disappointed with the boss fights, as they share the same flaws. Outside maybe one or two boss fights, I never got that feeling of the grand and epicness like something like a boss fight in Astrobot or Crash Bandicoot. The bosses felt like I was fighting a normal enemy, but they added more health and added more defense mechanics just to stop you from essentially KOing them. I played the game with an Nvidia 4060 laptop GPU and a 13th gen Intel i7-13620H, and even though with its updated graphics, I didn't expect the game to be that demanding even in 4K. Turns out I was wrong. The game is filled with stuttering issues left and right, and I'm not sure if it's gonna show during gameplay, but it's often occurred when entering a new area or switching from gameplay to cutscene or vice versa. And this is due to how the game has been developed in Unreal Engine 4, which is known for its shader compilation issues, with Final Fantasy VII Remake being a primary example of stuttering galore. There are ways to minimize the issues, but even so, you won't completely get rid of it, which is a shame. Now, if you never played a game like The Witcher 3 or Baldur's Gate 3, then the idea of permanently failing a quest can be frustrating. Obviously, you can save scum, which I like to do from time to time, but the autosaving in Epic Mickey Rebrushed is very aggressive, meaning if you reach the point of no return, then you will be locked out from completing a quest and having to replay the game from the start all over again, which I totally understand since it's part of the game design, but I wished at least they added the option to do a manual save. Because of this, I ended up downloading a save file online just so I could complete a quest I missed out on, because I couldn't be bothered to replay 9 hours. When traversing from one area to the next, Mickey travels via project screens, and they essentially are interactive loading screens that take you to interactive versions of classic Disney movies and are played in 2D. This was easily my favorite part of the whole game. Experiencing a piece of history in an interactive environment was such a good level design choice. My issue, however, is due to how short each area is and you're constantly backtracking, it quickly gets tiresome, and yes, you can skip by paying the Gremlins 10 e-tickets. It still is annoying, hence why I wish the developers added a fast travel option. So, does Epic Mickey Rebrushed achieve its goal of becoming an all-time classic? Well, it's hard to say, since I'm quite torn about the game. On one hand, Epic Mickey Rebrushed is a tribute to old Disney, and in many ways it succeeds in that regard. With its art direction, a blend of 3D and 2D animation, reintroducing forgotten characters, it feels like you're going back in time, reliving your childhood all over again. But on the other side of the spectrum, the PC version is filled with a lot of stirring issues, and the repetitive combat, few enemy variations, and a lack of fast travel options prevents the game from being a great platformer. But the biggest problem it faces, and it has nothing to do with the game itself, is the fact it was released 1 week before Astrobot, and we all know how much people love that game. It got overshadowed, and Astrobot set a standard for what modern 3D platformers can achieve if the developers are given the tools and the time. Whether Epic Mickey Rebrushed becomes a timely classic, only time will tell. But I do think if you play it on consoles, or can ignore the stirring issues on the PC version that don't rush through the game, I can highly recommend the game, but only if you wait for a discount. Thanks so much for watching, and I see you next time.